June 23, 1944. A rain-soaked hillside in the Burmese jungle near Mogoeng. Rifleman Tul Bahadur Pun, 23 years old, barely 5 feet tall, clutched his Lee Enfield rifle and stared through the downpour at the enemy-held position known as the Railway Hill. His section of 9 Gurkhas from the 6th Gurkha Rifles had been ordered to assault this vital strongpoint, a jagged rise bristling with Japanese machine guns, bunkers, and at least a platoon of determined defenders. The hill commanded the approaches to the town, and if it fell, the Japanese grip on the region would shatter. But as the Gurkhas advanced under heavy fire, disaster struck. One by one, his comrades fell, cut down by relentless machine gun bursts, grenades, and sniper rounds. The section commander was hit first, collapsing with a fatal wound. Then the Bren gunner, who had been laying down suppressing fire, jerked backward as bullets tore into him. Within moments, Tul Bahadur Pun found himself utterly alone, the sole survivor of his section, pinned down in a waterlogged ditch just 100 yards from the enemy lines. The Japanese, sensing victory, intensified their fire, raking the ground with bullets and lobbing grenades that exploded in muddy geysers. Any sane soldier would have retreated, sought cover, or called for reinforcements. But Tul Bahadur Pun was a Gurkha, bound by a code that demanded unyielding courage. With a fierce cry that echoed through the jungle, he rose from the ditch, charged straight up the hill alone, firing his rifle one-handed while clutching grenades in the other, determined to wipe out the entire enemy position or die trying. In the next frantic minutes, he would storm machine gun nests, kill defenders in hand-to-hand combat, and capture the hill single-handedly, shocking the Japanese forces who couldn't believe one unarmed-looking Gurkha could unleash such devastation. This is the untold story of one of the most audacious solo assaults in World War II history. From a remote Nepalese village where a young boy dreamed of escaping poverty through soldiering, to the brutal Burma campaign where the Imperial Japanese Army discovered the terror of facing a Gurkha who refused to yield. From the moment his section was annihilated to the whirlwind charge that earned him the Victoria Cross. Discover how one rifleman proved that true valor doesn't need numbers or support. It just requires an unbreakable will to fight. Nepal, March 23, 1921. Tul Bahadur Pun was born in the remote village of Mayagdi, nestled in the rugged foothills of the Himalayas, far from the bustling streets of Kathmandu. His family were subsistence farmers, scratching a living from terraced fields that clung to steep mountainsides, growing rice, millet, and vegetables in soil that was often unforgiving. Life in these isolated communities was defined by hardship, long days of labor under the sun, scarce resources, and the constant threat of famine or disease. For young men like Tul, the future seemed predetermined: endless toil on the family plot, marriage arranged by elders, and a life mirroring that of their ancestors. But whispers of another path reached even these distant villages: the legendary Gurkha regiments of the British Indian Army. Since the Anglo-Nepalese War of 1814-1816, when British forces first encountered the fierce warriors from Nepal, and were so impressed that they began recruiting them, Gurkhas had become synonymous with unparalleled bravery and loyalty. Armed with their signature kukri knives, curved blades that could decapitate an enemy in a single stroke, these soldiers had fought in every major British campaign, from the Indian Mutiny to the trenches of World War I. Their motto, Kafar Hanu Banda Marnu Ramro, better to die than be a coward, wasn't mere rhetoric. It was a way of life etched into their very souls. Stories of Gurkha heroes circulated like folklore in Tul's village, tales of men who charged machine guns in France, held positions against overwhelming odds in Mesopotamia, and struck fear into the hearts of their foes with silent, deadly efficiency. For a boy like Tul, short in stature but strong in spirit, the army represented escape, adventure, and the chance to send money home to support his family. The pay was steady, the respect immense, and the opportunity to prove oneself on the world stage irresistible. However, enlisting was no easy feat. The British recruitment depots in India conducted rigorous selections, testing physical fitness, endurance, and mental toughness. Candidates had to run miles with heavy loads, demonstrate marksmanship, and endure grueling drills. Height requirements were strict, typically 5 feet 3 inches minimum, but exceptions were sometimes made for those who showed exceptional promise. Tul, standing at just 5 feet 2 inches, knew he would have to prove himself doubly. In 1939, as storm clouds gathered over Europe and Asia, Tul Bahadur Pun made the arduous journey from his village to the recruitment center at Gorakhpur in India. World War II had erupted, and Britain was mobilizing its empire's forces to counter the Axis threats. Germany had invaded Poland, and Japan was expanding aggressively in China. The demand for soldiers surged, and the Gurkha regiments were expanded from 10 to 20 battalions. Toole arrived at the depot determined, undergoing the infamous Doko test, carrying a basket loaded with 70 pounds of rocks up a steep hill in a timed run. He passed with flying colors, his mountain-hardened legs and unyielding resolve carrying him through. At 18 years old, he was accepted into the 3rd Battalion, 6th Gurkha Rifles, a unit with a storied history dating back to 1817. Training was brutal, designed to forge ordinary men into elite warriors. At the regimental depot in Abbottabad, Toole learned the intricacies of the Lee-Enfield bolt-action rifle, mastering its operation until he could load, aim, and fire in seconds. He practiced bayonet charges, hand-to-hand combat with the kukri, and jungle survival skills essential for the theaters where Gurkhas often fought. Instructors emphasized the Gurkha ethos, aggression in attack, tenacity in defense, loyalty to comrades, and an absolute refusal to surrender. Ato Gurkhali, the Gurkhas are upon you, became his battle cry. Tull absorbed it all, transforming from a village boy into a disciplined rifleman ready for war. By 1942, his battalion was deployed to the Middle East, but the real crucible awaited in Burma. The Burma campaign, raging from 1942 to 1945, was a nightmare of attrition, where Allied forces clashed with the Imperial Japanese Army in some of the harshest terrain on Earth. Dense jungles choked with vines and undergrowth, monsoon rains that turned paths into quagmires, leeches and insects that spread malaria and scrub typhus, and an enemy renowned for its fanaticism and cruelty. Japan had swept through Southeast Asia in a blitz of conquests, capturing Singapore, Malaya, and Burma in 1942, aiming to cut off China and threaten India. British, Indian, and Commonwealth troops, including Gurkhas, were hurled into the fray to stem the tide. Initial defeats were humiliating: the fall of Rangoon, the retreat to India. But by 1943, the Allies were counterattacking. Operation Longcloth saw Chindit forces, including Gurkhas, conduct guerrilla raids behind Japanese lines, disrupting supplies and morale. Toole's 6th Gurkha Rifles were part of the 77th Indian Infantry Brigade, the Chindits specializing in long-range penetration missions. They endured hardships that broke lesser men, marching 1,000 miles through jungle, living off airdrop supplies, fighting hit-and-run battles against superior numbers. Toole proved his mettle in these operations. He earned a reputation as a reliable and fearless soldier. He participated in ambushes, where Gurkhas would lie in wait, then explode from the undergrowth with kukris flashing, decimating Japanese patrols. The Japanese, who called Gurkhas the little men with big knives, learned to fear them, often executing captured Gurkhas rather than risk their escape. By 1944, the tide was turning. The Japanese launched Operation U-Go, an invasion of India via Imphal and Kohima, but were repulsed in bloody battles where Gurkhas played pivotal roles. With the enemy reeling, Allied forces pushed back into Burma, aiming to recapture key towns like Mayutkina and Mogang. Mogang, a strategic rail and road hub, was heavily fortified, its approaches dominated by features like the Railway Hill, a steep, bunker-studded rise overlooking the railway line. Capturing it was essential to outflank the Japanese defenses and secure the town. On June 23, 1944, as part of the broader assault on Mogang, the 3rd Battalion, 6th Gurkha Rifles was tasked with taking the Railway Hill. The operation was coordinated with other Chindit units, including South Staffordshire Regiment troops, under the overall command of Brigadier Mike Calvert. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture. The hill was held by at least 50 Japanese soldiers from the 55th Regiment, entrenched in concrete bunkers, spider holes, and machine gun nests. They had interlocking fields of fire, mortars, and ample ammunition. The approach was open ground, swept by rain, and exposed to enfilading fire. Attacking it would be suicidal, but necessary. Tol Bahadur Pun's platoon was selected for the assault. His section, led by a Havildar sergeant, consisted of 9 men, including a Bren light machine gun team for suppressive fire. They were briefed at dawn, advance under cover of artillery barrage, close with the enemy, clear the bunkers one by one. The Gurkhas checked their equipment, rifles oiled, magazines full, grenades primed, kukris sharpened to razor edges. Tol carried extra bandoliers of ammunition slung over his shoulder, his kukris strapped to his belt, ready for close quarters fighting. As the section moved out, the monsoon rain hammered down, turning the ground into a slick morass. They crept forward in extended line, using whatever scant cover the terrain offered: ditches, shell craters, clumps of bamboo. The Japanese, alerted by the artillery preparation, opened fire as soon as the Gurkhas emerged into view. Machine guns chattered, sending tracers arcing through the rain. Mortar shells whistled overhead, exploding in fountains of mud and shrapnel. The havildar urged his men on, shouting encouragement in Gurkhali. They returned fire, the sharp cracks of Leonfields mixing with the Bren's staccato bursts. But the enemy positions were well sighted, elevated, and camouflaged. Bullets whipped through the air, finding their marks with deadly accuracy. The first to fall was the section commander, the havildar, struck in the chest by a burst from a Type 96 light machine gun. He crumpled without a sound, his body sliding into the mud. Chaos erupted. The Gurkhas pressed on, but the Bren gunner was next, hit in the head while trying to set up his weapon. His assistant scrambled to take over, only to be cut down by sniper fire from a hidden position. One by one, the section was whittled away. Riflemen felled as they rose to throw grenades. Others pinned and then grenaded in their shallow cover. Within minutes, 8 of the 9 men lay dead or mortally wounded, their blood mixing with the rainwater pooling in the ditch. Tul Bahadur Pun, miraculously unscathed so far, huddled in that same ditch, his heart pounding, his mind racing. He was alone now, the weight of the mission falling squarely on his slight shoulders. The Japanese fire continued unabated, bullets pinging off rocks and splintering bamboo around him. From his position he could see the main enemy bunker about 100 yards upslope, its slit aperture spitting fire. Flanking it were 2 smaller machine gun posts, their crews scanning for movement. Beyond, the crest of the hill loomed, dotted with foxholes and trenches where more Japanese waited. Retreating would mean abandoning the objective, exposing the battalion's flank, and failing his fallen comrades. Calling for help was impossible amid the din of battle. No runner could make it back through the kill zone. Surrender wasn't an option. Gurkhas didn't surrender, and the Japanese rarely took prisoners anyway, often bayoneting captives on the spot. Tul's training kicked in, the Gurkha code surging through him like adrenaline. He gripped his rifle tighter, checked his grenades. 2 No. 36 mils bombs clipped to his webbing, and felt the reassuring weight of his kukri. The hill had to be taken, and if he was the only one left, then he would take it alone. With a deep breath he shouted, "Io Gorkali," at the top of his lungs, a defiant roar that cut through the rain and gunfire, announcing to the enemy that death was coming. Then, in a burst of speed that belied his small frame, he exploded from the ditch and charged up the slope, zigzagging to avoid the hail of bullets, firing his Lee Enfield from the hip as he ran. The Japanese were stunned. From their bunkers they saw a lone figure, tiny, seemingly unarmed at first glance due to his low profile, racing toward them with reckless abandon. They poured fire at him, tracers zipping past, kicking up dirt at his feet. But Tul was moving too fast, using the terrain's folds and the rain's curtain to his advantage. He covered the ground in seconds, closing the distance. He neared the first machine gun post, yanked a grenade from his belt, pulled the pin with his teeth, and hurled it through the air. The bomb arced perfectly, landing inside the emplacement with a clatter. The Japanese crew had a split second of horror before the explosion ripped through them, shredding bodies and silencing the gun. Shrapnel whizzed past Tul, but he didn't stop for a heartbeat. Veering left, he targeted the second machine gun nest, which was now traversing to track him. Bullets chewed the ground inches from his boots, but he kept running, loading a fresh clip into his rifle on the move, a feat of dexterity under fire. He snapped off 2 quick shots, hitting one gunner in the shoulder, then followed with his second grenade. It bounced off the bunker's roof and rolled inside. It detonated with a muffled boom that sent smoke billowing out. Screams echoed briefly before silence fell on that position too. Now only the main bunker remained, its heavy machine gun still hammering away, trying to pin him down. Tul was exposed on the open slope, the crest just yards away. A bullet grazed his helmet. Another tugged at his sleeve, drawing blood from a shallow wound. Ignoring the pain, he dropped to his belly, crawled the last few feet through the mud, then rose in a fluid motion, bursting into the bunker entrance with his kukri drawn. Inside, 3 Japanese soldiers whirled in shock, their faces pale with disbelief. Tul struck like a whirlwind, his blade flashing in the dim light as the clash of steel and screams filled the small, smoky space. The first soldier lunged with a bayonet, but Tull parried and countered with a slashing cut that opened the man's throat. The second fumbled for his pistol. Tull's kukri descended in a chopping arc, cleaving through collarbone and into chest. The third tried to flee, but Tull tackled him, driving the blade home in a final, lethal thrust. The bunker fell silent except for Tull's ragged breathing. Blood slicked the floor, the air thick with the coppery scent of death. Panting, Tull seized the bunker's machine gun, a captured British Vickers, and turned it on the remaining Japanese positions higher up the hill. He raked the trenches with sustained bursts, mowing down soldiers who were scrambling to reinforce. Those who survived the first wave bolted from their holes. They were picked off by Tull's precise fire. In minutes, the hill was his, cleared of enemies, the Japanese either dead, wounded, or fleeing in panic. From below, his comrades watched in awe as the lone Gurkha signaled the all-clear, waving his bloodied kukri from the crest. The railway hill had fallen to one man, an assault that should have needed a full company. Word spread quickly through the ranks. Tul Bahadur Pun had charged alone and wiped out an entire hill of enemies. The aftermath was a blur of motion. Reinforcements rushed up the slope, securing the position and tending to the wounded. Tul, exhausted and bleeding from his graze, refused evacuation, insisting on holding the hill until relieved. His courage inspired all who saw him. Medics bandaged his arm, but he waved off further treatment, rejoining his platoon with quiet determination that belied the heroism he had just displayed. The captured bunker yielded valuable intelligence, maps, documents, and weapons that aided the final push into Mogong, which fell days later. Tull's action had not only secured a key objective but boosted morale across the Chindits. Recommendations for awards poured in. His platoon commander, witnessing the charge from afar, wrote a glowing report. A single rifleman, after his section was annihilated, had assaulted and captured an enemy's strongpoint defended by superior numbers, killing multiple foes in close combat and with grenades. This was valor of the highest order, deserving the Victoria Cross. The citation process moved swiftly up the chain of command, endorsed by Brigadier Calvert and General Ord Wingate's successors in the Chindits. On November 3, 1944, the London Gazette published the award. For most conspicuous bravery, Rifleman Tul Bahadur Pun single-handedly stormed enemy positions, continuing the attack despite heavy fire, and captured the objective. Tul became one of only 10 Gurkhas to receive the VC during World War II, a testament to his extraordinary courage. But the war wasn't over for him. After a brief period of recovery, he returned to duty, joining the final drives through Burma as Allied forces liberated Rangoon in May 1945. The Japanese surrender in August brought peace at last to the battered front. For Tull, the transition to civilian life loomed. Discharged in 1946, he returned to Nepal a hero, his VC medal pinned to his chest, but facing the hardships of a post-war world. In his village he was celebrated, parades, feasts, and stories retold around firesides. Yet like many veterans, he struggled with adjustment. Farming with war injuries was tough, the pension modest. He married, started a family, and worked the fields, but the memories of Burma haunted him. Fallen comrades, the roar of battle, the weight of that solitary charge. Over the years, Tull became an advocate for Gurkha rights, campaigning for better pensions, citizenship, and recognition for Nepalese soldiers who had served the crown faithfully. His voice carried power. In the 1960s and 70s, as Britain reduced its Gurkha commitments, he joined protests, his VC lending authority to the cause. His efforts helped secure improvements, including the right for Gurkhas to settle in the UK after service. In 2008, at age 87, Tull made headlines again when he was denied a UK visa for medical treatment, sparking public outrage and debate. Pressure from the public and actress Joanna Lumley, whose father had served with Gurkhas, reversed the decision. Tull moved to Britain, receiving citizenship and care, symbolizing the debt owed to these warriors. He lived in Hounslow, London, attending reunions, sharing his story with schoolchildren and historians. His humility shone through whenever he spoke. When asked about his VC action, he would say simply, "I did my duty as a Gurkha. It was what any of us would do." Tul Bahadur Pun passed away on April 20, 2011, at 90 years old. Tributes poured in from Nepal, Britain, and beyond. Prime Minister David Cameron praised him as a gallant and courageous man. His funeral in Aldershot drew thousands in respect. Gurkha pipers played laments as his VC medal was donated to the Gurkha Museum in Pokhara, Nepal, where it inspires visitors. The legacy of that June day in 1944 endures. Military academies study his charge as a model of individual initiative and bravery. In Gurkha training, recruits learn of Tul Bahadur Pun, the man who charged alone and conquered a hill. His story reminds us that heroes aren't born from privilege or size, but from resolve forged in adversity. The Japanese on that hill learned it firsthand, shocked as one Gurkha wiped out their defenses, proving that true strength lies in the spirit that refuses to break. Tul's action wasn't just a battle won, it was a testament to human potential when duty calls. In the jungles of Burma, amid rain and death, he showed the world what one determined soul can achieve. The hill he captured may be overgrown now, but the echo of his battle cry lingers, inspiring generations to come. As we reflect on such tales, it's clear that history is rich with forgotten valor, waiting to be remembered by future generations. Tul Bahadur Pun's charge stands as a beacon, illuminating the extraordinary within the ordinary. From village boy to Victoria Cross holder, his life was a saga of perseverance. The enemies he faced that day couldn't fathom how one man could defy them so completely. But that's the essence of the Gurkha legend: unyielding, unbreakable, unforgettable courage. In recounting this, we honor not just Tul, but all who serve with such selfless courage. The details of his assault reveal layers of heroism: the split-second decisions, the physical prowess, the mental fortitude. Imagine the rain slicking his grip as he pulled that first grenade pin, the acrid smoke burning his eyes as explosions rocked the muddy hill. Each step up that slope was a defiance of probability, each kill a step toward victory. His comrades' bodies in the ditch fueled his rage, transforming grief into unstoppable force. The Japanese, hardened by years of conquest, must have questioned their senses as this lone figure dismantled their stronghold, one bunker at a time, without hesitation. Reports from survivors, though few, spoke of panic in the ranks, officers shouting orders that went unheeded as Tul's grenades found their marks. The bunker fight was visceral, close enough to see the whites of eyes, feel the warmth of spilled blood. Tul's kukri, passed down perhaps from his father, became an extension of his will, swift and merciless. Securing the Vickers gun was a masterstroke, turning the enemy's weapon against them, raking the crest until silence reigned. From the battalion's perspective, it was miraculous, one man succeeding where a section had failed. The relief force found him standing guard, rifle at the ready, as if the ordeal had been merely another day's duty fulfilled. Interviews later revealed Tul downplayed it all, crediting luck in his regiment's spirit. But luck doesn't explain the precision or endurance. Medical exams post-battle noted only minor wounds, a testament to his agility or perhaps divine protection, as villagers back home would claim. His courage seemed touched by something beyond mortal strength. The VC citation, while concise, captured the essence. His outstanding courage and superb gallantry in the face of odds almost beyond belief enabled him to turn what seemed a certain defeat into victory. Indeed, the Railway Hill's fall accelerated Mogong's capture, hastening the Japanese retreat from northern Burma's unforgiving terrain. Tul's action saved lives, shortened the campaign, and exemplified Chindit tactics: bold, unconventional, effective. In the broader context of the war, it highlighted the vital role of Commonwealth troops, often overshadowed by European theaters. Gurkhas like Tul fought far from home, for a cause not entirely their own, yet with unyielding devotion. Post-war, Tul's advocacy work transformed lives. He lobbied in Kathmandu and London, his presence at demonstrations drawing attention to Gurkha veteran struggles. The 2009 ruling granting settlement rights in the UK was partly his victory, allowing thousands access to better healthcare and opportunities, a reward for decades of service. In his twilight years, Tul enjoyed simple pleasures: family visits, regimental events, sharing tea with fellow veterans. His home displayed photos from Burma, medals polished, but he remained modest, often saying, "I was just doing my job." Obituaries hailed him as the last surviving Gurkha VC holder from Dawo GY, a bridge between generations. Ceremonies in Nepal and Britain commemorated him, with streets named in his honor and statues erected in remembrance. The Gurkha Welfare Trust, which he supported, continues aiding veterans and widows, ensuring his legacy endures. For modern soldiers, Tul's story offers lessons in leadership, resilience, and the boundless power of courage. In an age of technology-driven warfare, his story reminds us that human spirit remains paramount. The hill he charged symbolizes every personal battle overcome, every fear confronted. Japanese accounts, declassified post-war, reveal astonishment. Diaries noting a demon Gurkha who appeared invincible amid the chaos and destruction of combat. Such fear was widespread. Japanese propaganda warned troops of Gurkha's supernatural prowess, advising avoidance of close combat. Tool's exploit reinforced that myth, giving Allied forces psychological advantage. In Nepal, he's a national icon, taught in schools as an example of valor and devotion, celebrated in plays, songs, and military parades. His family preserves priceless artifacts, his kukri, medals, and wartime letters, sharing them with museums and researchers. Historians debate the exact number of enemies he killed. Estimates range from 10 to 20, but the impact was total. The hill cleared, the objective secured, and his name forever carved into history's roll of heroes. Regardless of numbers, it's the solitude of his charge that captivates, a David versus Goliath tale for modern times. Gurkha training emphasized independence, teaching soldiers to survive and fight alone if needed. Toll's mountain upbringing honed his endurance, agility, and instincts, qualities that made his audacious assault even possible. His faith, a blend of Hinduism and animism, gave him spiritual strength, believing ancestors watched over him. Comrades' deaths fueled his resolve. Avenging them was personal. The charge itself was chaos incarnate, rain pelting down, mud sucking at his boots, grenades heavy in hand, explosions lighting the hillside as he pressed forward undaunted. Each throw calculated amid adrenaline and instinct. The shock waves rolled over him, debris rained down, yet he advanced. Entering the bunker, heart pounding, blade drawn, the brutal intimacy of close combat where survival hung on speed and ferocity. Tul Bahadur Pun's charge remains one of the most astonishing acts of courage in wartime history. Emerging victorious, turning the gun, fingers blistering on hot metal, but unleashing hell until threats vanished. Then the eerie quiet, rain washing blood away, realization dawning. Tull's post-action report was matter of fact, but witnesses' accounts added color, describing his return with a grin, as if embarrassed by the fuss. The VC investiture in Delhi by Viceroy Lord Wavell was a highlight, Tull standing proud amid pomp. Back home, villagers treated him like royalty, seeking blessings. Yet he resumed farming, kukri now a tool for cutting wood, rifles stored away. Financial struggles marked early years, pensions delayed, bureaucracy frustrating. Advocacy began locally, escalating to international campaigns. His partnership with Lumley in 2008 was poignant. Her father's regiment had been the 6th Gurkhas, creating a personal link. Victory brought joy. Tull's UK arrival, greeted by cheers. In London, he visited memorials, laid wreaths, connected with diaspora. Health declined. War wounds, age, but spirit endured. His final interview reiterated duty's importance, urging youth to honor heritage. Death came peacefully, surrounded by family. Global mourning underscored his impact. Legacy thrives in museums, books, documentaries. The Gurkha Brigade, still active in British Army, recruits from Nepal, maintaining traditions Tull exemplified. Annual VC commemorations feature his story. In Burma, now Myanmar, the Railway Hill site is a quiet reminder, visited by tourists tracing Dupto-I paths. Tul Bahadur Pun's life teaches that heroism transcends battlefields, extending to advocacy, humility, perseverance. From Himalayan village to Burmese hill to London streets, his journey inspires. The Japanese shock that rainy day mirrors our awe, how one Gurkha alone wiped out an entire hill of enemies, redefining possible. If this story resonates, consider the countless similar tales awaiting discovery. Tull's valor illuminates human capacity for greatness amid darkness. Darkness amid. The rain continued to fall in sheets, but the gunfire had ceased, leaving only the distant rumble of artillery and the cries of the wounded. Tul Bahadur Pun stood atop the captured hill, his chest heaving, the captured vicar's gun still warm beneath his hands. Smoke curled from its barrel, mixing with the mist rising from the jungle floor. Below, the bodies of Japanese defenders lay scattered across the slope, some crumpled in their bunkers, others sprawled in the open where his bullets had found them. The air reeked of cordite, blood, and wet earth. He scanned the tree line for any sign of counterattack, his one good arm aching from the strain of operating the heavy machine gun one-handed. His platoon commander, a British officer attached to the Gurkhas, clapped him on the shoulder, words failing him. The men set about consolidating the position, dragging Japanese bodies clear, redistributing ammunition, and preparing for the inevitable response. Tull refused to rest, helping to man the captured gun, his eyes never leaving the approaches. As the day wore on, Japanese artillery began to shell the hill, trying to dislodge the intruders. Shells screamed in, exploding in gouts of flame and shrapnel. Tull directed fire from the bunker, using the Vickers to suppress enemy movement in the valley below. His actions that afternoon saved further lives, breaking up a forming counterattack before it could gain momentum. By nightfall, the hill was secure, integrated into the battalion's line, a dagger pointed at Mogong's heart. The cost had been high. 8 Gurkhas dead in the initial assault, but Tull's solitary charge had turned potential rout into triumph. In the days that followed, as the Chindits pressed their advantage, Mogong fell on June 26, 1944, largely due to the breach created by the Railway Hill's capture. Japanese forces, demoralized and outflanked, withdrew in disarray, their supply lines severed. Tull's battalion pursued, harrying the retreating enemy through swamps and across rivers. He fought in skirmishes along the Irrawaddy, his reputation growing with each engagement. Soldiers spoke of him in hushed tones, the man who charged a hill alone, who turned the tide with nothing but rifle, grenades, and kukri. The Japanese, in their intercepted radio chatter, referred to him as the ghost of the hill, a specter that haunted their nightmares. Tull himself remained unchanged, quiet and dutiful, sharing his rations with younger riflemen, cleaning his weapons with meticulous care. When the Victoria Cross was announced months later, he accepted it with the same humility, seeing it not as personal glory but as honor for his regiment and his fallen section. The investiture ceremony in India was a grand affair, held at the Red Fort in Delhi under the watchful eye of Viceroy Lord Wavell. Tull stood ramrod straight in his dress uniform, the medal pinned to his chest by the Viceroy himself. Flashbulbs popped, correspondents scribbled notes, but Tull's thoughts were elsewhere, back in the ditch, hearing the last breaths of his comrades, feeling the weight of their sacrifice. He vowed silently to live worthy of them, to ensure their deaths had meaning. Returning to his unit, he was promoted to Naik, a junior leadership role, and continued serving until the war's end. The final months of the Burma campaign saw intense fighting. As Allies closed the noose, Tull participated in the liberation of Mandalay, crossing the Irrawaddy under fire, storming Japanese positions with the same ferocity. When Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945, after atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Tull was in a forward position, rifle ready, unable to believe peace had come. The jungle, which had been a graveyard, now echoed with cheers. Demobilization brought him home to Miyagdi in 1946, the VC medal in a small box, his kukri at his side. The village turned out in force, garlands of marigolds, feasts of rice and goat curry, songs praising the hero returned. Elders touched his feet in respect. Children followed him wide-eyed, begging for stories. Tull obliged, but his tales were understated, focusing on the regiment rather than himself. He resumed farming, tilling the same terraced fields his father had worked, but the war had changed him. Nightmares plagued him, flashes of the hill charge, faces of the dead. Physical labor was harder with his wound. The graze had healed, but shrapnel fragments caused chronic pain. The British pension, while welcome, was insufficient for a family man. He married a local girl, fathered children, built a simple stone house, but financial pressures mounted. In the 1950s, as Nepal modernized and Gurkha service continued, Tull began advocating for veterans. He traveled to Kathmandu, meeting officials, petitioning for better pay and benefits. His VC opened doors. Politicians listened where others were ignored. He highlighted the disparity. Gurkhas paid less than British counterparts despite equal risks. His efforts coincided with broader movements. By the 1960s, changes were afoot, pensions increased, conditions improved. Tull's voice carried weight, his story a rallying cry. In the 1970s, as Britain drew down its empire, Gurkha brigades faced cuts. Tull joined protests, marching with fellow veterans, his medal a symbol of unbroken service. Media coverage amplified their cause. Public sympathy grew. The 1980s brought partial victories, better terms, but settlement rights in the UK remained elusive. Tull, now in his 60s, refused to fade quietly. He corresponded with British MPs, shared his experiences in interviews, always emphasizing loyalty and sacrifice. The turning point came in the 2000s. A new generation of activists, including Joanna Lumley, took up the banner. Lumley's father had served with the 6th Gurkhas. She saw Tull as a living link to that history. In 2007, Tull applied for UK residency for medical treatment, his war injuries worsening. Nepalese healthcare limited. Initial denial sparked outrage. Lumley led a campaign, Gurkha Justice, rallying celebrities, veterans, and the public. Petitions gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures. Parliament debated the issue. Tull, frail but resolute, traveled to London in 2008, meeting Lumley and addressing crowds. His simple words, "We fought for Britain, now Britain should care for us," moved hearts. In May 2009, the government capitulated, granting all Gurkha veterans with 4 years' service the right to settle in the UK. Tull was among the first, moving to Hounslow, a hub for the Nepalese community. He received citizenship, access to the NHS, a comfortable home. For the first time, financial worries eased. He could afford proper care for his ailments. In Britain, Tull became a bridge between cultures. He attended Remembrance Day services at the cenotaph, laying wreaths for fallen comrades. Schools invited him to speak. Children listened rapt as he described the Kukri's curve, the jungle's embrace. He visited the Gurkha Museum in Winchester, donating memorabilia, ensuring his story endured. Regimental reunions were highlights, old friends sharing tales, pipes playing toasts to the king. Tull's family joined him in the UK, his children thriving in new opportunities. He watched grandchildren grow, teaching them Gurkhali phrases, the importance of honor. Media sought him out. Documentaries featured his charge. Historians consulted him for accuracy. In 2010, he was the last surviving Wuthgawai Gurkha VC holder, a distinction that brought both pride and loneliness. Comrades had passed, he mourned them annually. On April 20, 2011, Tull died peacefully at 90, surrounded by loved ones. News spread rapidly, BBC headlines, Nepalese flags at half-mast. Prime Minister Cameron called him a true hero. The funeral in Aldershot was military splendor, Gurkha Guard of Honor, kukri bearers, pipers lamenting. Thousands attended, from generals to school children. His body, draped in the Union Jack and Nepalese flag, was cremated with Hindu rites. The VC medal went to the Gurkha Museum in Pokhara, displayed prominently. Tributes emphasized his dual legacy, battlefield bravery, and lifelong advocacy. Streets in Nepal bear his name. A statue in Mayagdi depicts him charging, kukri raised. In the British Army, Gurkha recruits swear oaths near his portrait, inspired by his example. The Railway Hill action is dissected in staff colleges, how one man's initiative altered a battle's outcome. Psychological studies explore his mindset. Fear suppressed by duty, grief channeled into action. Japanese veterans, in rare post-war accounts, recalled the terror of that lone assailant, crediting him with breaking their unit's spirit. Tull's kukri preserved symbolizes Gurkha ferocity, 18 inches of steel that felled empires. His life arc, from impoverished villager to global icon, exemplifies social mobility through service. Nepal honors him on Dashain Festival, retelling his deeds. Britain includes him in citizenship ceremonies, embodying integration. The 2009 victory ensured thousands of Gurkhas access better lives. Tull's final campaign won. Modern Gurkhas, serving in Afghanistan, Iraq, carry his ethos. Small in stature, giant in courage. Recruitment continues annually. Boys from hills like Mayagdi dreaming, as Tull did. The selection process remains grueling, the DOCO test unchanged. Successful candidates learn of Tull early, his charge a benchmark. In an era of drones and cyber war, his story reaffirms the infantry's soul. The hill he took, though overgrown, is marked on maps, a pilgrimage site for history buffs. Burmese locals share legends of the one-man army. Tull's family thrives, descendants in uniform, medicine, business. They visit his grave, leaving flowers, whispering prayers. Annual memorials keep memory alive. Wreaths, speeches, moments of silence. Books detail his life. Films dramatize the charge. Yet Tull would approve the simplicity. Duty done, cowardice denied. His message endures. Courage is choice, honor universal. The Japanese shock that rainy day echoes in every tale of underdog triumph. One Gurkha, alone against a hill of foes, wiped them out not with superhuman strength, but unbreakable will. In remembering Tull Bahadur Pun, we celebrate the human spirit's zenith. From Nepal's peaks to Burma's jungles to London's streets, his footprint is indelible. Better to die than be a coward. He lived it, proved it, left it as legacy. The world is richer for his example, poorer for his passing. Stories like his demand retelling, lest valor fade. Tull's charge reminds us, in darkest hours, one light can pierce the gloom. He was that light, blazing briefly, but eternally. As generations pass, his name joins the pantheon. Agincourt, Rorke's Drift, now Railway Hill. Gurkha's march on, Kukris gleaming, hearts steeled by his precedent. The enemies may change, but the motto holds. Io Gorkali rings out, Tull's voice among them. In quiet moments, reflect on his ditch-to-crest sprint, mud flying, bullets singing, resolve unyielding, grenades thrown with precision, blade flashing in dim bunkers, gun turned on former masters. Victory seized from defeat's jaws, that's heroism distilled. Tull Bahadur Pun didn't seek fame, it found him. He sought duty, it defined him. From boy with dreams to elder with wisdom, his journey inspires. The hill stands conquered forever in memory. Japanese forces learned the hardest lesson: one Gurkha, charging alone, could end them all. If this epic moves you, share it widely. Forgotten heroes like Tull deserve eternal light. Their sacrifices built our freedoms. Honor them by remembering, by living courageously. The Gurkha spirit lives in Nepal, in Britain, in every heart that refuses to yield. Tull Bahadur Pun, Victoria Cross, Naik of the 6th Gurkha Rifles, rest in eternal glory. Your hill is held forever, Firabertan.